In our next discussion on Is India Turning Out to be the World's Capital for IVF Treatment, our panel of guest speakers will touch upon points like what are the hurdles on the road for the India to become fertility treatment capital of the world and how can we overcome them.
Good evening, one and all, and this is the 6th panel discussion. We are here on the 2nd ET Health World Fertility Conclave, and it's a very important topic we are going to discuss. It's about, is India turning out to be the world's capital for IVF treatment? Introduce them to you all. It's Professor Abha Majumdar, Director, Center of IVF and Human Reproduction, Sir Ganga Hospital. Welcome, ma'am. Dr. Rita Bakshi, CEO and founder, RISAA IVF. Thanks a lot, Dr. Bakshi, for joining in. We have Dr. Arunima Haldar, consultant IVF and reproductive medicine, Manipal Hospital, joining in. Thanks a lot, Dr. Arunima, taking some time of his schedule. And we have Mr. Vinesh Gadhia, CEO for India Operation at Fertility Clinics. Thanks a lot, Mr. Gadhia, for joining in and making time for us for this important panel. And last but not the least, we have Dr. Professor Pankaj Talwar, Head Medical Services, Birla Fertility and IVF, who will be the moderator. Thanks a lot for accepting our invitation and being the moderator.
Thank you, Pratibha. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Let's, without any much of ado, I'll go to the opening batsman for the day today. Our opening batsman is Vinesh. We all know Vinesh and he has been introduced already. To ask you the entry question for you, which I would like you to answer in context of India's market and global market, and then we compare both of them. Why do you think that India will become the global and probably definitely an Indian leader in the segment of IVF and ICSI and IUI in the coming 4 to 5 years?
I will start with some very interesting data points. A very famous leadership coach, Simon Sinek, speaks about business very passionately. And he says that there are 3 things which are required for any successful sector, industry or business: right market condition, right talent, and right capital. So let's first talk about right market condition. Undoubtedly, it is proved and evidence that India has the highest young population in the world, even higher than China. Our last population census was done in 2010, and our government has skipped 2020 because of COVID. So let's take 2010 data. We had 247 million young population in reproductive age, which was highest, which is till date highest in the world. Just imagine that the demography has shifted now 10 years. And if you calculate how many young people have actually become old out of the TG of reproductive age and how many young women or girls and boys who have come into reproductive age, it's a whooping number. As per the trend, if we take 10 years demographic shift, we are now 434 million young couples in the world. This is a very, very potential number. Nobody in the world can beat this number in next 10, 20, 30 years, and we will remain the country we're having a highest young population. This is the first mega trend which supports the fertility sector. Second is, again, this is evidence-based and it is proved by data that India has one of the highest urge of parenthood in the world, at least in all major economies. So this is very important demography and mega trend also for fertility business, because you take example of South Korea. It's a fashion there, it's a trend there, which is again, government of South Korea and also country like Japan, they are working very hard. People don't want to marry them. It is a fashionable trend to remain single. It's a fashionable trend there in Japan and in Korea. Even if they're married, they say we choose not to have parents. So to have urge of parenthood is it's very deeply embedded in our societal culture, which is also very important. Third mega trend supporting to our fertility sector growing or India becoming the fertility treatment capital of the world is ever-changing lifestyle. We all know that in Tier 1 city, it is already established fact, and it is becoming a major trend in Tier 2 and Tier 3 city to marry late. While we marry late, and after marrying, today's young generation couple, they would want to settle, accepting that they are going to stay with each other for longer years. So they will wait for 2-3 years before getting locked into a parenthood. Also, the third thing is both women and men are career focused. So while they marry late, then they decide for parenthood late and they're focused on career. When they actually try for parenthood, it's actually beyond their peak fertility potential. So just to again give an evidence-based published data that an Indian woman peaks fertility potential at 25 versus a Caucasian woman peaks at 31. There is a gap of 6 years. Whereas we try and we copy blindly Western lifestyle, our genes don't change. So if an Indian couple tries for parenthood at 30, it's actually very, very late. So again, combining all three, highest young population in the world, highest urge of parenthood in the world, coupled with ever-changing lifestyle. And there are many factors, consumption of tobacco, consumption of alcohol, PCOS, Cox endometriosis, but I'm just focusing on one. Late planning of parenthood, these three itself is very potential mega trend to suggest that India will have more than 50 million. 30 million was already published in ANY data in 2015, which was based on population census of 2010. We are 10 years ahead now. India will have 50 million couples suffering from infertility, subfertility, wanting to achieve their dream of parenthood. Out of that, even if there are 20-25% of couples who will require IVF, it's going to be a huge number. Today, with 1800 plus clinics, we do about 225-250,000 cycles. You just take the demographic shift of 2010 to 15 and 15 to 20, even if the awareness, education, penetration, affordability remains the same. Just the increase in the number of TG or number of couples who are in reproductive age or number of couples who will suffer from infertility, that itself will take this 250,000 cycle to about 450,000 cycle in next 5 years. That number itself will make India as fertility treatment capital of the world. So the mega trend suggests that there is no doubt we are on right track. This is one part of right market condition. In terms of talent, I think we have highest number of gynecologists in the world, and we have highest number of gynecologists who are skilled for doing IVF work in the world. We have now good universities offering MSc in clinical embryology, and they are churning out about 50 to 75 embryologists in every year, which itself will give us a lot of manpower to start new IVF clinics. In terms of capital, I think the whole world is looking at India. Healthcare is a sunshine sector. India as an economy is the fastest growing major economy in the world. In healthcare, single specialty is considered as less capital intensive and giving better business metrics. Fourth, lifestyle related healthcare and single specialty is the cherry on the cake for investors today. I am telling you, coming from a private equity background, working with PEs from last 10 years, there is no shortage of capital in India for right business plan. So right market condition, right talent, right capital. I think we have all three. And we are into a golden decade in India to create value and to create a long-lasting corporate, treating infertile couples, helping millions of couples to achieve their dream of parenthood, making Earth a little bit happy.
Thank you so much, Vinesh. That was just fantastic. What do you feel about the whole emerging image of IVF as India as the global brand leaders? Rita?
So I agree with Vinesh that, and he's brought out very beautifully. I also think that since we are dealing with a lot more other populations like Bangladeshis and Myanmar and Africans, and their urge, including in fact US and UK. So I will say the urge to parenthood is there literally, and that is why India is such a welcome place where people want to come. One, because of course English is our main language. And I think that's where we score over other countries like China and Japan, where, it's one language which people are comfortable with. Secondly, I think the economic part of the cycle here, our cycles are, at least 1/5 the price in US. So I think that's another thing where, why India will become a global capital with talent, skill, equipment, and expertise, which is par excellence. So I think all these make India a winning formula.
Fantastic, Dr. Rita. Fantastic. Thank you very much for your inputs. Dr. Abha, 1 minute, everyone.
Yeah, this is very nice that Vinesh has given us such a bright perspective, and I wish this holds true in this pandemic, which is still lingering or sort of hovering over us. So let us hope what you've said holds true. It will only hold true if this pandemic ends. So all the best for that.
Thank you, Dr. Abha. Thank you very much. Arunima, floor is all yours now.
So I'm in concordance with Mr. Vinesh. There was a recent study which came out. It was by the National Family Health Survey. It talked about the total fertility rate in India. So it did say that the total fertility rate in India has come below the replacement level. So especially in urban area, it has gone down as low as 1.6. The replacement level is 2.1. So which means that there is a very high burden of infertility rising in the country, and definitely India will be able to have a much better market. And also in concordance with Dr. Rita, like she said, the cost here, we do see a lot of patients from abroad. The cost here is much lower. So definitely patients prefer to come here. And it's one more thing which is very good here is that the doctors are very approachable. If you talk about NHS, it is very difficult to contact a super specialist there. But in India, it is much easier. So that is another advantage here to come to India.
Thank you, Arunima. Thank you very much. So I think we'll end this question here and go to the second. Dr. Abha wants to say something. You are raising your hands, ma'am. Yeah.
Fertility rate decline is not because the infertility population is increasing. It is because of the family planning trend in our country, that everybody is limiting their families to 1 or 2 child, because that's a bigger picture. The smaller picture is IVF and infertility. So the possibility is high, as per what Mr. Gadhia said, and Rita spoke about it, that the possibility is high because it's very affordable, because English is the language, because we really have a very big market, and the world has a lot of infertility, including our own country. We're not even treating foreigners right now. So taking that picture into account, there is a lot of scope. But because the fertility rate has gone down, I don't think that the scope increases, because that is what our country is trying to achieve in terms of the population control programs.
Very right, Dr. Abha. Very right. Now coming to Dr. Abha. Ma'am, it was, I think, 2 years back when the COVID hit it. Now we've become so used to COVID, we don't even remember the years. We remember the stains. And suddenly on 25th of March, Honorable PM declared the lockdown, and then we have not looked back till then. So do you think that COVID actually impacted the growth of our segment? Number one. Number two, do you think that COVID affected the outcome of IVF, and did it affect the fertility of the people? That's something for you, ma'am, to ponder on.
Well, as the terminology goes, COVID-19 was coined because it really started in 2019 in China, Wuhan. Now, by the end of January 2020, there were only 170 people who died. But then, by the end of 2020, this figure went up to 2 million mortalities only because of this. And that was the time when public health emergency of international concern was declared by WHO, and the sudden outbreak of a full-blown pandemic led the world coming to a standstill, affected all sectors of society, lives as well as businesses. Now, the pandemic induced lockdowns, social distancing, which meant also IVF clinics had to hit the pause button on their operations. Now, since the lockdown was so sudden and it came out of thin air to all of us, we were all like struck by a lightning with no preparations of any sort. As you said, the Prime Minister on the 24th of March, 8 p.m., in his speech declared from 12 midnight, there is complete lockdown. We didn't know what to do. We had no preparation time. IVF pregnancies were impacted in many ways. The patients suffered, the staff suffered, and the IVF clinic owners suffered. Everyone went through a very, very large undercurrent of uncertainty and financial and emotional stress of being in an unknown situation. We were like in a situation where we did not know what is going to happen, how long is the lockdown going to go on for, what is going to be happening to us, to our patients, to our clinics. Several patients who were in the middle of the treatment were strongly advised, freeze all your embryos. Don't get the embryo transferred. We don't know how this pregnancy is going to come up. And if you are in the middle of a cycle and you've just taken 4 or 5 days of stimulation, stop. So, all the treatment was cancelled till the situation stabilizes. We never knew that the situation will take so long to stabilize. So for the patient, it was mainly psychological impact because it was immense. It affects, infertility as such also affects all these women and their husbands in a very big way. Psychologically, they are very low in society. They feel that their image is being tarnished because they are infertile. On top of that, there was a big stress of stopping treatment. All of a sudden, they didn't know how long it will be postponed, what is going to be the impact. So that was one thing. Even though the clinics tried their best to support all these patients, did a lot of tele-counseling while the lockdown was there. We did a lot of counseling sessions, consultations, yet IVF staff, so many were laid down because clinics closed. People could not pay their staff. So a lot of loading off of staff was done. Then what happened to the IVF centers? One is international travel stopped completely. Even the interstate traveling was so sort of reduced, or it was not allowed from one state to the other. You just could not travel. So what happened? Medical travel has seen India at its best, like Vinesh just said. 18% of our patients come from outside, from the neighboring countries, may it be Nepal, Bangladesh, other SAARC countries. So that we lost totally. Apart from that, the laboratory suffered dramatic losses. You see, we had to cryopreserve embryos, oocytes, sperms, because COVID was, sort of affecting everyone. Our cryo cans were full. Now, liquid nitrogen has to be replenished every 15 days. We had so much in storage. We could not jeopardize these embryos. Getting liquid nitrogen was the biggest nightmare which we faced in Gangaram Hospital. We used to send our man who used to stand in a queue from morning to evening only to get more liquid nitrogen and more in this pandemic where there was no interstate travel. So no supply of liquid nitrogen was there. So we were trying to use only what we have with 20 cans all full of embryos. We did not know that will the embryos perish if we are not able to, resupply. What else happened? We also had to, when it started coming back a little bit, we had to change so many things. That meant a lot of money to be used of. We had to change the air exchanges in a laboratory. We had to maintain social distancing. We had to sanitize everything. We had to have our staff wearing PPEs. So all that led to a lot of cost, which even today the IVF centers have not been able to recover when the full-blown first wave and second wave came. Third wave, thankfully, is much lesser. So we have not gone through so much stress during this. Gangaram Hospital, such a big hospital, which took care of the second wave, had to convert most of his beds into COVID beds. So IVF was nowhere, It had totally gone. So we could not recover any money from IVF or could not reassure patients when we would start their treatment. So I think these were the main media. Media is another thing. Culture media has a limited shelf life. We had media worth lakhs of rupees which had to be thrown away because it has a shelf life of about 45 days. all the media which was open had to be thrown away, and the other media which had a date on it had to be discarded. So by the end of 5 months, when we really started doing cases, we found that we had to discard media and know where we could find media, because it could not be imported. Even the vendors could not give us. They were giving us sample bottles to do few cases only. So, IVF laboratories really suffered a great setback because of the liquid nitrogen.
Dr. Abha.
Yeah.
It's actually fantastic insights. It's very, very amazing insights to give to us. So I come to Dr. Rita. Quickly, ma'am, do you feel that the COVID actually affected the fertility potential of a couple? Something went wrong, more number of abortions or anything which you feel you encountered when we were
Dr. Pankaj,
quickly.
Surprisingly, I didn't feel like this in the first or the second, but in a very mild third wave. And, where the parents were not so affected, but I have seen more miscarriages, and I've been discussing this with the ultrasonologists who've been seeing more ascites and, in fact, 1 or 2 IUDs. And, which I never imagined 32, 33 weeks IUDs happening just because they had a very severe third COVID wave. So I really, in the first and the second, I was very confidently telling, no, it doesn't pass the placenta, and, we are all okay. And when all our bodies came up and said, yes, start our services, we started very actively. And I think we prayed for our surrogates more than for ourselves that, God keep them safe.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rita. Arunima, for a few minutes, can you talk about the impact of COVID on your practice?
Sir, actually, I have seen a very different way in which the clinics have changed now. So we are more patient-friendly now. We feel that we are able to, with the teleconsultation and all, which was not very rampant initially, it has started quite a lot now. So a lot of patients who are even though they were not able to travel during the COVID times, have consulted us, and we have been able to help them out in some way or the other. They have always felt closer to us during this time. Yeah. We have supported them in that way, sir.
Thank you so much. Last thing from Dr. Abha, ma'am. Ma'am, can you tell us, do you feel that it did affect the sperm count in the men? The effect of COVID on the male fertility? Few seconds, ma'am.
There have been papers which have been describing this, but eventually I think it is the high temperature at times which suddenly brought the man as azoospermic after a month or so. But when we gave them time, they came back with their sperm counts. So this is a practical thing which I saw, that suddenly a man turns out to be no sperms in his semen. And this was, say, within a month of having high fever in the second wave.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abha. So I'll come back again to Vinesh. Vinesh, we have some concept in our country. We always feel very insecure about the pricing of an IVF treatment cycle. We have some direct, indirect, hidden pricings. We feel that we go to a unit and they say, okay, X rupees is the pricing of an IVF cycle. And by the time it is over, it becomes X plus. So when we look at the rising number of infertile couples coming to us, do you feel with your experience or with your knowledge, is there a way to make it more affordable? Is there a way to have a transparent pricing, keeping in view the anticipated rise of IVF cycles in our country?
I am very, very determined to speak one thing. The quality of IVF in India, the quality of service which we give in India, the clinical outcomes which we have demonstrated in India. I'm not going into a debate or a rat race, but I mean, more or less everybody will agree that it is 50% plus clinical pregnancy, clinical outcomes per cycle started. And with the cost which we are doing in India, it is amazing. It is amazingly managed and the most efficient across the world. You take example of IVF done in Europe, it's about 7,500 euro to 10,000 euro. You take example of IVF done, I mean, same kind of quality of clinical outcome, but I believe that our services are a lot better. As what Arunima said, we are more approachable, we are very patient friendly. Keeping that aside, between US and UK and Europe, it is about $10,000. My own company, same clinic in Abu Dhabi, same service, almost same clinical outcome, is $16,000, and we offer in $3,000. It's 5 times cost, 2-hour flight from India. You go to Sri Lanka, it is 1.5 times of cost of India. You go to Bangladesh, it is even higher than Indian cost of IVF. I mean, it's a perceived image that IVF is costly in India. It's the most efficient IVF cost across the world, with the best-in-class services to the patient in terms of patient satisfaction and a very, very competitive clinical outcome. I would say better than most countries across Europe and US, but that can be debated later. In India, IVF is not costly, and any effort to reduce the cost, I believe now will impact the clinical outcome, which nobody wants, neither the service provider, neither the patient. In that context, I think we are managing so efficiently well. You take any good IVF company in India, organized, unorganized, nobody will be more than 8-10%, max 12% EBITDA. I mean, what more we can do? With millions of dollars invested, the profitability is never more than between 8 to 12%. And with best-in-class clinical outcome, best of the services in terms of patient satisfaction, we use good quality media, good equipments, good talent. I don't think IVF in India is costly. I think we are the most efficiently managing IVF fraternity in the world. And all patients should thank us. It's a perceived notion that it is costly, and that perceived notion will go away when we continue doing good work. And very quickly, in 10 seconds, I will address this question. The only thing is required is to bring more transparency in pricing. Like one pricing where we are not adding plus. If we save some money, it's good for the clinic. If we burn some more money, I think it should average out. More transparency is required and not any change in pricing. Thank you.
One comment.
Yes, Dr. Abha, please come.
Vinesh, I totally agree that India, it's not costly, but it is not reachable to all. So probably some insurance policy for those patients, not to reduce the price, but to give them some support for IVF treatment, because a school teacher or someone else like this who truly requires IVF cannot reach. For them, even having a surgery done in a good hospital is not possible.
So, I totally agree.
So just some insurance policy is required for these people.
Correct.
Insurance will have a great help.
Then we'll say this 43 crore people in the reproductive age would all be coming to IVF if some of them can use maybe below a certain income level. These insurance companies could support them, not over that. So some policy like that, because then what will happen that all the people who have a lot of connectivity will be able to approach these insurance companies. Again, the ones who are really needy will be left high and dry. So, something like that could help them, and that should be one thing which I think.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abha, and wonderful, Vinesh, getting your insights from your perspective of a global CEO, I'll say that. So, Dr. Rita, we normally talk about variable rates of success, clinical pregnancy rate and beta-HCG success rates. What do you feel is the right number for the audience? They like to ask, they like to know.
Dr. Pankaj, I think I'll agree that the numerator and the denominators of success have to be very clearly defined. There are a lot of labs which are giving, biochemical pregnancies or so. I think it's going to be a little hypothetical for me to say, but I would say I'm happy with the beta-HCG more than 100 to really say, although I think all of us have seen pregnancies in much, at 50 or 70 also. So I can't say that, but in general, I would say that. And success rate, yes, when we used to say 35, 40%, I think all of us, like Vinesh said, can claim to have 50% success now. So, which I think is good enough.
Great. So I'll come back to Vinesh. Vinesh, what is your target number of a beta-HCG positive success rate?
More than 100. But if you ask me, largely we would believe to track on clinical pregnancy after gestation sec and fetal heart rate.
Correct. What rate you like to bank upon hitting the nail on the head?
50 plus. Always.
50 plus of clinical pregnancy rate.
Clinical pregnancy rate.
Absolutely fine. Great. We are so happy, Vinesh. Arunima, quick insights from your side.
So regarding the fact that Dr. Abha was telling about insurance companies, well, I'm working in Bangalore, sir. So I get to see a lot of people who are from IT companies. And I have a very positive trend, which I would want to say, that majority of the big companies are providing insurance to the people for IVF. So that's a very good thing which is coming up nowadays. And there are some companies which are also providing the female employees for social egg freezing. They want their female employees to go ahead with social egg freezing also.
So thank you so much. I think we'll sum it up here. Lovely conversation. I'm also an embryologist, 20 years plus in clinical embryology and IVF both. It's always, amazing to see how our embryology is progressing. Nowadays, we get our alarms. We get an SMS on our mobile phones telling that somebody's opened an incubator door, or the CO2 levels in the incubator are falling down, or maybe the humidity is going up and down. More than that, every embryo or an oocyte nowadays is being tracked. So I think that takes us to a situation which is completely errorless, where we don't make any mistakes in terms of mixing up gametes as well as getting good outcomes and touching 50% CPR. So, or take-home baby rate. So, Dr. Rita, what do you feel about the future of technology in the field of IVF?
Thank you, Dr. Pankaj. Again, I think we've come a long way from a laparoscopic pickup of an egg. We've come really long. To cut it short, let us say, how the whole technology is driving the IVF field now, starting from when the couple walks into the OPD. The witness systems, I think all the couples are absolutely perturbed. Is there going to be a mix-up? Is there going to be a confusion? And our movies, of course, add on to the confusion. So the witness system, where the radio frequency identification is started from the moment you walk in. You get an identification number, all the plasticware, everything is identified, and there is never a chance that there will be a mix-up. So I think this has brought up this is one of the biggest changes, I think, which have come. Now coming to the stimulation, so walking through the IVF, coming to the stimulation part, we have now kisspeptin analogs coming in. Soon I think we'll be seeing. So the fear of hyperstimulation which was there, now we are going to have these analogs which are, just like puberty, they're going to act in a manner so that you have natural good number of oocytes as well as no OHSS. So this is as far as stimulation is concerned. Now, once you come into the lab, the extraction has occurred, and the lab, our culture media, now they are adding cytokines, they are adding growth macrophage colony stimulating factor. So granulocyte macrophage colony stimulating factor, which is not only adding nutrients to the media, it is adding onto the communication between the embryo and the endometrium. So that's where our culture media are coming up. Now, once the embryo is in the incubator, we have embryoscopes, time lapse. No more is it's a static process. We all know embryos, it's a very dynamic process, and a photograph every 10-15 minutes of how the embryo is developing gives you the exact embryo which is running right on time to be the embryo which is to be transferred. With that, we come to the, because so many of our women are marrying late and they require pre-implantation genetic technology to be brought in. And, now with the non-invasive technology coming in, all you have to do is just send the culture media, and we are into that space now. We don't even have to have invasive PGT anymore. Not only that, I think the artificial intelligence and machine learning, which has brought some new platforms. So, we have and this has been introduced in the US, UK, and Ireland, and I'm sure we'll be seeing the PGT artificial intelligence platform here. So when you have thousands of cycles, you already know which is the embryo which gave you the result. And with that learning, the human bias is not going to be there anymore, because the artificial intelligence will tell us that this is the right embryo that we can, this is going to change the success rate in a very, very big manner. With that, also the 3-parent procreation, now the mitochondrial disorders, which were passing otherwise, as well as in the older oocytes, the mitochondria, which is a powerhouse, that also, so changing of a mitochondria and making, you have the female and the male pronuclei, the nuclei, but the mitochondria, which can be replaced from a third parent. Now that is also which is come. It has not found clearance, ethical clearance everywhere, but I'm sure these are new changes. I think one of the best changes that has happened is vitrification. Of course, gone are those days when we were stand for hours for slow freezing, vitrification of eggs, sperms, and embryos, and so many girls coming up for cryopreservation of eggs so that their genetics is preserved for a very, very long time. And finally, of course, the endometrium. We have the ERA test, the receptivity assay. So we know there's a genetic tool to it now, so we can actually make out whether the endometrium is receptive on the right date or not. I think all these technologies have made IVF something to be looking for, and which has definitely increased the success rate in a big manner.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Dr. Rita. One quick question for Dr. Abha. Dr. Abha versus AI.
Okay.
What do we pick up? What do we pick for?
AI is?
Artificial intelligence, ma'am.
Right. What I think is right now.
Your experience versus AI.
I think at the moment we just need a great embryologist and a good lab. I feel that yes, these are innovations which will come up and we will accept them because, technology has changed from doing open surgery. We've totally changed into laparoscopy. Same way stimulations. Now I don't wait. If they come on the 17th, the day I start a stimulation, I don't tell them come back on day 2. And they do better because they've just ovulated. Everything is suppressed. There's no antral follicular selection. So we have changed a lot of things, and I'm sure all the changes which Rita has just told us will come up slowly. But at the moment, what we need for our labs is a very honest, transparent communication to our patients, a non-HCG derived beta HCG as a true pregnancy test. And I would say a live birth rate of 30-35%, you are doing excellent, with a clinical pregnancy rate of about 60% also. 50%, 40%, but a live birth rate of over 30% is what we are aiming at. So what we need is a very good embryologist. Pankaj knows that it is the embryologist which will make the embryo, whatever equipment you have. You have a time lapse, you're using it as an incubator. You're not even able to put the readings together. It's not easy to do it. Very few centers are putting the readings together to find out which is morphologically and time lapse technique, both ways the best embryo. I feel we need to have good embryologists. The need is to have honesty in our, sort of statements, transparency, and we need to look back. Where are we going wrong? Every day do an audit of our system and see why today the embryos after vitrification did not expand like they were expanding 1 week ago. And you will find that sometimes your petri dish goes wrong, sometimes something else goes wrong. These are small things. And they are very ordinary things, but they are what impact our results at least.
Yes. So it is Dr. Abha over here. Dr. Vinesh, you had some query. You had your hands up, and then I'll go to coming back to you, Arunima, in a minute or in a few seconds. I'm going to come back to you.
It was not hand raise. It was like a thumbs up to Dr. Abha. I think the most important thing is that we need a very good embryologist and lot of attention to detail. It is said very fondly that the devil is in detail.
Correct. So we all should be devils. Great. Arunima, what do you say? It's AH versus AI.
I am pro AI.
Oh, lovely.
So,
lovely. 1 minute you have. 1 minute to prove yourself right.
So I am a person who thinks of this way that probably as the national registry is being set up, probably I'll see a central database one day. And when probably the satellite clinics or the smaller clinics will be able to have an access to the database, probably be able to give a better prognostication to their patients depending on whatever is available in the cloud in that database. So that is something which I see in the future. So I do agree with Dr. Abha absolutely about the embryologist. It is very important to have the embryologist like really well, but definitely this is something which is coming up. Probably I am younger, that's why I think of it in this way.
No, you're absolutely right, Arunima. We all agree with you. And it's a very fair
This is for
choice you have
future.
made.
This is for future.
Yeah.
But whatever you do, nothing can replace a embryologist sitting like a hawk on everything on a daily basis. On a daily basis.
So due diligence is very important, and I fully agree with all of you. That's fantastic. Now, coming to the last topic for the day, and that's for you, Arunima. That's for you. As I told you that we had certain hiccups coming to the year 2025, and that's it. We're gonna now hit the figure of around 5 lakh cycles by 2025. And as we are growing up, comes our AIT laws and bills. So in very short, and then I'm going to invite everyone to talk for 1 minute each after Arunima. Would you feel that is the AIT Act or the Surrogacy Act is going to impact our practices in our country? Are they good? Are they bad? Or what's the way ahead with these guidelines? Arunima, all yours.
Thank you, sir. So this is a very burning question, and almost every discussion nowadays is on the AIT Act and the Surrogacy Act itself. The AIT and the Surrogacy Act was passed by the Parliament in the month of December, and it has been gazetted and enforced on the 25th of January 2022. So this was a very welcome decision, a very awaited step for all the AIT specialists. The government has really acted very swiftly to enforce this act, but it has it did leave us very less time to prepare ourselves for this new norm. Though the law aims to improve ethical practice and has a lot of transparencies, currently it comes with its own set of ambiguities. We need a few more clarifications before the rules are actually put out. And the Department of Health Research, the government, and all our societies are working very efficiently and very hard to do so. And we can expect that the appropriate authorities will form very soon. So let me just highlight the major issues which we are facing with the AIT Act as well as the Surrogacy Act one by one. The best part about the AIT Act is that all clinics and banks must be registered with the National Registry. This is good in one way, that it has initiated ways of setting standards and codes of conduct for fertility clinics and sperm banks in the country. So it helps in preventing unregulated mushrooming of clinics, that is one. And second, each and every clinic will strive very hard to maintain the standards which they are supposed to maintain. And this will probably eventually lead to every patient getting a better care as compared to what it was before. Now comes the problems. So not much, but there are certain things which are a little dicey here. The law prohibits us from retrieving more than 7 oocytes from a donor. This is kind of impractical, as normally we obtain anywhere between 10 to 20 eggs from a donor. So leaving behind eggs is very detrimental for the donor's health. It can lead to ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome, as we all know. There's another problem here. So when we obtain a larger number of eggs, the chances of conception are automatically higher. But when we are capping it at 7 oocytes, we may not obtain the adequate number of embryos, and we may end up doing more number of cycles for each and every commissioning couple, which will increase their costs eventually. So the other thing here is that the law is currently not clear whether the egg pickup has to be done at the bank or at the AIT clinic. If it is at the clinic, that's fine. It's normal. It's whatever we have been doing till now. But if it is in the bank, we don't know who will do the pickup, who will be doing the oocyte freezing. And as rightly said by Dr. Abha, the embryologist is very important. Oocyte freezing is a very meticulous process, and the quality of the frozen oocytes may be questionable in this situation. The other problem here is the freezing of the oocytes. Once you thaw the oocytes, the survival rate is not as good as if you had made embryos and kept. The another problem here is that if the AIT clinics or the banks which are or the AIT clinics which are situated in the smaller towns or the peripheries, they will have a problem with transportation of the oocyte. So that is another problem which we may face. The other thing which the law says is that the donors have to be covered under insurance by the commissioning couple. That's good in one way, but again, it can be exploited as well from the donor end. The donor has to be a first-time donor. That's a very welcome decision, but this is basically done to so that the genetic pool is not really restricted. But on these lines, we used to do something called as donor sharing before. That was done initially to cut down the cost of two commissioning couples. So that has been prohibited by this law. So both the couples have to pay larger amounts in this case. So these are in short about the thing. One more thing I wanted to tell here is about cryopreservation. The law does not say anything clearly about cryopreservation of embryos or eggs or sperms, especially for cancer-related issues, fertility preservation-related. So that is not very clear here. So coming to the Surrogacy Act, definitely there is a complete stoppage of the commercial surrogacy. It's a very welcome decision. All unethical practices with regards to surrogacy, exploitation of surrogates, etc. will not happen. And only women who are willing to help others will be able to go ahead and do the altruistic surrogacy. Expenses which will be paid in regards to surrogacy will be only for the pregnancy related expenses, and it will be for the insurance coverage for the woman. Now, there is one slight problem in this Surrogacy Act. It talks about married Indian couple with the female's age 21 to 50, and the male's age 26 to 55. Now, if a woman in this situation knows that she is not having a uterus, she has two options: either to marry a guy who is more than 26 years old, or she has to wait for next 5 years to have a pregnancy. So this is one problem with the act. So apart from this, only fresh transfers can be done for the surrogates. So which means that we have to keep the surrogates ready while we are stimulating the women for oocytes. That's one thing. The good thing about the Surrogacy Act is that it talks about getting the intending couple, that they should be getting something called as an essential certificate and something called as an eligibility certificate by the appropriate authority. So this clears us a lot from the legal aspect as clinics. So we don't involve ourselves in all of this, and we just as soon as we see the certificate and we see the intending couple with the surrogate, we are ready to go ahead and do the transfer for the surrogate. Basically, the Surrogacy Act has two things. There should be a medical indication to do the surrogacy, as well as it can be done only for altruistic purpose. The act is cognizable, non-bailable, which is good in one way because it is strict, but the strictness of the government is understandable. The AIT Act, on the other hand, is a very friendly act, so it will definitely help us to give much better service to our patients later on.
Thank you so much, Arunima. Quick sum up from Dr. Abha, Rita, and then Vinesh from the corporate perspective. Dr. Abha, I'll invite you. A brief sum up in 1 minute.
I just want to draw everyone's attention to one little thing. It is not the ART Act which is imposing so many problems. It is mainly the Surrogacy Act, or third party, I would say, which is imposing all the problems. Now, regarding surrogate, removing commercial surrogacy will take away surrogacy to a large extent. That is one thing. Leave apart all other things. When we talk about donor eggs, a lot of clinics do so many donor cycles. Anyone with ovarian reserve of less than 1 nanogram also goes for donor. That will have a problem. But when you say that they've said 7 oocytes, I'll tell you from where this figure came. When you look into the Posadian group, then they say that if the woman is less than 35, 6 to 7 oocytes should be good enough to give 1 live pregnancy. And they feel that you don't take out 7 and leave the rest inside. You stimulate the patient so little that you get just approximately 7 to 8 oocytes. This is what they intend to do when these are young women. It's not for older women. So here I've had a talk with the lawyer who coined this, and she did say that she doesn't want these unrealistic doses to be given to these fertile young donors and everyone takes out 20, 30 eggs from them. So that is one thing. 2 is what you said is oocyte bank and the clinic. they are going to have a central registry with link to the Aadhaar card of the donor with the central authority. And the donor will be sent to a ART clinic which has all facilities for retrieving oocytes, freezing them, because this is all being clarified, now with the meetings and all, that the ART bank will only recruit a patient. A donor will see whether she's all right, age-wise, age certificate, her Aadhaar card, her husband's permission, everything has to be looked up. So they'll look after your logistics. And then they send the donor that we have sent you this donor. And since it will be Aadhaar card linked, she cannot go again. It's like our vaccination. We can't go and take our booster because it is linked to our Aadhaar card. So anywhere they punch it, they will find that, yes, we've already got our booster, or our second dose was not 9 months ago, it was only 8 months ago, so you can't get a booster. So that is how they're going to do with the oocyte donors. So I feel the law has thought a lot. Yes, there are a lot of glitches which we will all face because we had a free hand at everything. Jitna chahe donor ko stimulate karo, surrogate ko do embryos dalo, all that has been brought to a...
Yeah, I'm very sure, Dr. Abha, things are coming into the right track now.
Yes.
Initially, it was my way or highway. Things are becoming better.
Yes.
We'll have, now we'll have...
There will be glitches.
The option choice. And it's a great thing, great inputs. As we're ending now, 1 minute each for Dr. Rita and then from Vinesh.
So I agree with both Dr. Arunima and Dr. Abha as far as the law is concerned. And I think I agree, that building up these layers or hierarchy, will in a way protect us, because now we, as you said, she's going to pass through whether it's a donor or a surrogate whenever it will happen. So we are happy with that. I think I would have probably been happier if they had built up some kind of compensation for as well as for the surrogate, because we all understand that everything requires some kind. And, everybody is very intelligent now. We don't underestimate our surrogates or donors.
No lunches are free ever.
Yes,
ever.
Exactly. So, if the moment the government announces that this is the kind of compensation, we are clear, they are clear, parents are clear. So I think this is something that we are still looking forward to. And of course, the penalties are very huge. So
yeah. Correct. I think they are all delivering over that.
That is the only thing which is very bad.
And the only thing, one more last thing that Dr. cells that they have put it, because we know in IVF, we cannot give 100% pregnancy. A grievance cell straight away going to a state board is going to put us in a katgara forever.
Definitely. We are being put in a silver cage for sure. And thank you so much, Rita, Vinesh. Sum it up quickly from the corporate perspective. How is it hitting the corporate units?
So, Dr. Pankaj, from business perspective, corporate perspective, I'll keep it very simple. With some glitches, it is progressive, much needed. Welcome change for the AIT industry in India.
Thank you very much. So I think we had a very wonderful discussion. We have overshot our time by 2 minutes or 3 minutes. So thank you so much, my all panelists, to be here today. Thank you so much, Dr. Abha. Thank you so much, Vinesh, Arunima, Dr. Rita. I think we all conveyed the messages hard and clear, and we all learned. So any take-home messages from anyone, in case someone wants to say anything which is very futuristic, which can change the course of ART treatment?
We are in the golden decade for IVF sector in India.
Sunshine period, that's what I always say. Let's go and hit success, Sachin. Yes, Dr. Abha.
Yes, Pankaj, you've already said it all. All of us have agreed that there are a lot of glitches in the new gazette which has been passed. I wish it was more friendly to doctors, but then maybe we'll have to keep ourselves very tight, and that's it.
Thank you so much. So big thanks to the team here. Thank you very much, Economic Times. Thank you so much, Pratibha. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day, and we're going to end our panel discussion here. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.
Thank you everyone for covering all the necessary points. Indeed, a very insightful discussion. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for much awaited ET Health World National Fertility Awards. Stay tuned as we'll be right back.